Hello, ladies and D-Gens. My name is Farmer Nash. We are back at it again with another video. Today, I am with an absolute legend in the building here. We have none other than NFTZ Boy. We're going to call him TZ. So, TZ, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to the people who may not know you.
Yo, how you doing, Nash? Thanks very much for having me on first and foremost. It's pleasure to be here this morning. A little bit about myself. I am a DGen, much like everybody else that's probably listening to your pod. Joined the NFT space a little over a year and a half ago. Got completely addicted to Zrun, the horse racing game. If anybody's aware of that one on the Ethereum blockchain, sucked me right in. Me and a mate sort of loved the horses. Thought, how good's this digital punting going to be? Let's have a play, and have been down the rabbit hole ever since. Came from a traditional career in hedge funds, spent almost 15 years with one down here in Sydney, retired at the end of last year, and have been sort of full-time in the space since then.
Awesome. Love to hear it. So, and yeah, Zedrun was pretty big. I'm not sure how big it still is. Have you ever played the other horse game, Peg XY or Peg Axie?
Peg Axie, no, I didn't play that one. Sort of too difficult to get into their initial mint, and I was deep into Zrun at the time, and
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be too hard for them to compete, to be honest.
Yeah, you saved yourself a lot of money, so good job there.
Lucky, always better to be lucky than smart, huh?
There you go, right? So can you tell me your involvement with the Pixelverse and tell me a little bit about the project? You're a co-founder, correct?
Yeah, co-founder of the Pixelverse by title. I joined the Pixelverse and Sappy Seals ecosystem about this time last year. I was involved in the mint on September 1. Lucky enough to pull the Drake Seal 1 of 1 and sort of got myself involved in the community quite heavily. Got introduced to WAB and the team members at the time. And like I said just before, was getting deep into the space. So thought it would be really enjoyable to roll up the sleeves and sort of help out with the project. Came on with the Sappy Seals initially as sort of a lead tokenomics role. That's evolved to encompass more of a full system econometrics sort of role. So sort of diving into the economics of the ecosystem and systems design for the upcoming Pixelverse game as well. I do a little bit of legal consult work. I'm not a lawyer, but I do legal consultancy internal for the team as well as just being a bit of a generalist and helping out on whatever's going on. So yeah, we're very excited with everything that's going on behind the scenes with the Pixelverse. But that's sort of how I got involved and what I'm looking after at the minute.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to ask you something real quick before we get into the Pixelverse. They are
Mm.
very closely tied with the Sappy Seals, who are an extremely popular NFT collection on Ethereum right now. Can you tell me your involvement with Sappy Seals and kind of how those two ecosystems are, correlated or uncorrelated?
Yes, yeah, so that's exactly right. So a lot of people who minted Pixel Pets and may not have understood that they were attached to the Sappy Seals, and vice versa. If Sappy Seals had missed out on the Pixel Pets, although I don't think that's too many people. Everybody who was an initial Sappy Seal probably knew about the Pixel Pets and the Pixelverse. Um, yeah, they tie together extremely closely. So basically, how our ecosystem works is we have an umbrella corp called Pixel Labs, and underneath that sits the Sappy Seals and the Pixelverse, of which Pixel Pets is a part of. So everything that we do through the Pixelverse will tie back into the Sappy Seals. And it's sort of our OG collection through which we want to derive, as much benefit to the original holders as possible over time. So the synergy that exists there is that Sappy Seals currently can be staked on our rarity-based staking contract to earn Pixel. Pixel is the metaverse token that is the utility token that drives the Pixelverse. So it's going to be required for every sort of in-game interaction once that economy comes alive. So you can think things like breeding, buying cosmetics to enhance your experience, leveling your pets up, fine tuning their stats, all of those different sort of systems that live under the Pixelverse banner will be sort of fueled by Pixel, which the Sappy Seals generate currently.
Yeah, so why don't you tell me a little bit what actually is the Pixelverse? Is it a video game? Is it a metaverse? Is it both? And can you also tell me what role the Pixel Pets will play in the ecosystem?
Yeah, sure. So the Pixelverse was this big grand idea that we had, this time last year. I don't want to say Wab is an absolute visionary. I won't say that he maybe was the first to coin the term, metaverse, because we had Sandbox and Decentraland before that. But like for me, listening to a lot of project leads this time last year, he was the one that really understood what it was going to be, what it could be, and want to really race to get there. So the Pixelverse was, the Sappy Seal's big grand vision for how we wanted to build that metaverse play for the Sappy Seals. It sort of has been through constant revisions and iterations, and it continues to be that way, because we just want to get it right and deliver something that's usable. It's been used as a buzzword recently without a lot of idea, as to what direction it's going to go and how people are going to participate in a metaverse. So the Pixelverse is sort of the big all-encompassing bubble for what we want to be a big social, interactable, digital metaverse for people to participate within. Pixel Pets lives within the Pixelverse, and that's our flagship play and earn game. So we're building a turn-based pet battler at its core. With we're trying to get away from the traditional trope and be a genre buster out of there. We've got two game leads who come from the traditional gaming space from a game development perspective, who are incredibly talented and have massive overarching sort of ideas for intelligent systems design that is really going to sort of throw a spanner in the works in that category, and really put a twist on what is a pretty tried and tested arena with things like Pokemon, Axie, and those sort of turn-based battle games, but make it a lot more skill-based, fun, exciting, fast-paced, and more appropriate for today's esports landscape.
So it's going to be like kind of Pokemon on steroids, right? Something that's actually going to be able to be played like esports ready, and you said a lot more kind of depth to the game.
Exactly.
And
So
the
yeah, we don't
metaverse
want to.
too.
Yeah, 100%. So, sort of got a little bit sidetracked there, but yeah, we don't want to pigeonhole ourselves as we're Pokemon but just different. But
Yeah,
like,
that's fair.
it's the easiest comparison to make. These guys have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours over the last year, sort of putting their blood, sweat, and tears into the actual game design and how that battle system is going to work. It's really exciting to see all that unfolding behind the scenes as we sort of get to internal alpha testing of that platform and actual game design, or the actual battler. But yeah, it's sort of Pokemon on steroids, but with an incredibly much more in-depth tactical battle system that requires the user to actually sort of understand synergies across move sets,
Yeah.
construct their deck in the terms of moves that are on their pets that they're combining to form their team, and everything that goes into that.
Awesome. So if you had to pick one genre, what genre would the game be? Or is it its own genre?
It's a good question. I'm not entirely sure what the actual genre is off the top of my head. I don't know if Pet Battlers is a genre, but
So it's kind of like it's just a turn-based kind of battle system, we'll say.
that's how it will be in its first form. But we have, like we were saying before, that Pixelverse has sort of gone through iterations and reiterations. It's going to be the turn-based battler to start off, and then it's going to grow into a social metaverse experience with that at its core.
Got it. Got it. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience with the Pixelverse. So,
Mm-hmm.
I remember when Sappy Seals came out, I didn't own one, right? But I was a big fan of Wob. And like I just had it was so funny just watching his tweets and like all the stuff that was going on. The seals are hilarious. But I finally couldn't stand not owning one, so I bought one. It's been my PFP for like I don't even know how long now, and I don't ever plan on changing it. But when I bought my Sappy Seal, I thought that I was gonna be able to play the game within the next probably like month or 2 months or anything, because there were giant Twitter spaces with multiple communities like Llamaverse, Nifty League, a few other ones too, and there was I think 2,000 or more people at each one of these Twitter spaces. So I think that was some months ago, right? Extremely hyped, extremely excited, right? But then over time, I haven't really heard much about the Pixelverse besides a few like community. I think you guys have a bi-weekly update. So
Hmm.
can you tell me a little bit about what's been happening since then, and maybe why we haven't seen as much like hype around the Pixelverse recently?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like the work being done behind the scenes is massive. Like I'm not entirely sure, and like it was probably true for me as well. You don't sort of the common NFT participant probably doesn't understand the scope of work that goes into actually creating a game. A lot of people in this space think it's a little bit click your finger and things can happen overnight. And just because of how many projects are coming out on a daily basis and how fast the space moves, um, I feel like people have sort of gotten away from what actually goes into the game development process, and that can take AAA studios years and years and years of work to release a game. Now I'm not comparing ourselves to a AAA studio because that's not what we're producing, at least for our alpha MVP that's coming out. um, you know to your point, that sort of 6 months ago we had these huge spaces and people were hearing about the Pixelverse. That's it's not that nothing's gone on behind the scenes, because that's absolutely false. It's just that the scope of work is absolutely massive. Effie and Daiku, our two project leads who are amazing, through the whole game development process, have really spent a lot of time, fine tuning, reiterating, iterating, and just playing with the actual game formula and how it's going to play out. Um, and our front end developers and back end developers have been spending time you know building out all of the architecture that is going to serve that game as a platform. Now I'm not a developer, so I don't know the nuts and bolts that are going on exactly behind the scenes. I just see the output, but like the work product that they're generating looks and feels amazing. So it's just one of those factors that things take a little bit longer than people originally anticipated. um, and the wheels are turning in the background. It's very difficult for us to showcase you know 1,000 lines of code in a
Yeah, let me say
interesting
something
way.
about that real quick.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't understand is that it is incredibly hard to make a video game, and it takes a long time. And the thing about making a game is that for the first, and this is just an arbitrary kind of timeline, but for the first year or year and a half, your game looks like shit. And what
Mm.
I mean by that is you might have some cool art or some cool 3D renders, stuff like that, but you really have nothing to show, because the thing about making a game is that it all kind of comes together like near the end of the project. You really don't want to you don't want to show people your game, put your game into the world when it's not ready, because chances are your game's not going to kind of go toe to toe with the bigger guys. So what they're doing is making sure everything's in place for what I believe you said is the alpha test.
Yep. That's exactly right, and that's so well put. Like, I mean, it does, and it can be difficult because you sort of look. You've got an idea in your head of how you want things to look, and you know how it's going to get there. You can see that framework coming to life, like you said, with 3D models, concept art, rendering of individual pieces. But as you build the building blocks, the skeleton, and the framework of the game, I mean, it just looks like a 1984 Atari
Yeah,
has been spat out
it's
at you,
like
and it's
12
just like,
FPS.
yeah, exactly. And you put that in front of, the community, and they can be, we've got an incredibly solid community, but the broader community can be, very quick to judge and jump on. And if they see something that's not polished, completely working, we run the risk of this being a flop before it even had a chance to be brought to life. People might move on to the next thing, completely forget about us,
They'll write
and
you
not want to
off.
play the game.
They'll
Yeah,
write you off based on what you show them in the beginning. So
exactly.
yeah, so you don't want to show them like the 12 FPS leak, right? You want to wait till it's ready to be shown to the world.
Exactly.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, and we've got a bunch of perfectionists on the team, and like it can be to our detriment as well. Like the constant iteration of ideas and design. We just want to deliver something that is as good as possible and as enjoyable as possible for our users when it comes to the right time.
Yeah, so a lot of Sappy Seals holders, I would say maybe aren't gamers. Um, are non-gamers going to be able to have fun in the Pixelverse? What does my life in the Pixelverse look like as someone who maybe isn't a big fan of playing video games?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So, as I was saying earlier, the Pixelverse for us is this all-encompassing idea of a metaverse. It's not just solely relying, or leaning on pixel pets as, the only thing you'll be able to do within it. I mean, that is the core pillar that we're building at the moment, but we have a much grander vision to bring in, you know, things for people to do that span more than just video gaming. So, we have True DGen on the team, who is an absolute DeFi god. He's been in the space for the better part of the last decade and played on every single protocol that you can imagine
Huh,
before
nice.
before it was even cool to do so. So we have this big. We really want to sort of bridge, you know, the realm of DeFi and gaming. The big GameFi element. We want people to be able to participate in there and really enrich their own. It's not an investing experience, but their own, take control of, their finance movement, that like what DeFi is meant to do. So we want to create spaces for people to be able to participate in that without really having to understand the nuts and bolts of, DeFi protocols that can be very, very challenging to understand. We want it to be very socially interactive and, community driven. So we want to provide a whole bunch of experiences that allow people to express themselves, communicate with other people, just hang
Yeah,
out and
yeah.
have a good time. So, that can go in a lot of different ways, and we're not 100% set in stone of how we're going to achieve that. But we want to build a big, vast, open world that ties the lore of the Pixel Pets and Pixelverse universe together, whilst also providing that space for people to sort of participate and express themselves in a wide variety of different ways.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy, TZ, is that I'm a gamer, right? I was playing games since I was probably like 2 years old. I don't play as much now, unless it's like a Web3 game, then I'll try it out. But what I didn't realize is that so many people play so many different types of games. So if you can not only have a video game, but you have this also metaverse experience, like to me, it's so boring to just go in and experience and talk to people. But there is a huge crowd for things like I think it was called Third World or like Second Life or something, and it was that VR game where you basically just talk to people and you get to dress up. There was that big meme with the Ugandan knuckles or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
right.
It was that game, and like there's so many people that just join these worlds to just talk and meet people and stuff. Like there's Omegle and a bunch of different other like programs that you could use. So what I like here is that you're kind of encompassing both of those, right? You're gonna make a game, but you're also gonna make somewhere to chill. I think a lot of metaverse projects only are focusing on like, yeah, we're gonna have some concerts here, we're gonna chill, but they don't really have, the part for the gamers to join in because the gamers are gonna be the first people in that metaverse, I guarantee you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And yeah, it's something that's, front and center for us in terms of providing that all-encompassing experience. I mean, we're putting it in place with our game design principles first and foremost. I mean, I've said that yes, it is a pet turn-based pet battler, and you need to construct your teams, figure out your move set, but there's going to be a whole bunch of sort of parallel subsystems that exist within that framework that there might be people who don't really like the turn-based pet battler, choose this move, choose this pet, attack this square, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we're creating a whole bunch of sub ecosystems through breeding mechanisms and move fungibility that have their own. It's almost a game within a game. So I'm doing the algorithmic design for the genetic algorithm that sits behind the breeding that will happen between pets to create offspring, new move sets, and
Nice.
fungibility of moves ultimately. And yeah, that's been fun in and of itself because I loved the breeding aspect of Zed, and I think they got that completely wrong in that it was very mathematical. It wasn't really hereditary based, and
What do you think of
if you
the
bred a Z1,
what do you think of the Axie breeding, real quick? Have you seen how that
um,
works?
I have, and I've explored it like pretty well. I haven't had first-hand experience with it. I've just read a lot about it. Um, so my comments probably have to be taken with a little bit of grain of salt because I haven't, spent hours and hours and hours, mucking around with their breeding thing. But to me, it feels a little bit simplistic. And I think that's a function of them being, first to the genre, first to the space, first to this concept of, creating new NFTs by combining two old NFTs and stuff like the metadata sitting behind that.
Yeah.
Um, it's just a little bit rudimentary and simplistic, which can be great because for casual gamers who don't want to put hours of work into understanding what's going on behind the scenes, it's like, smush two together and you get a new one. And you don't have to worry about the outcome. But yeah, like, I mean, I'm not a big critic of it. I just think it's a little bit simplistic.
Awesome, awesome. Now I want to kind of imagine something, and in the next, let's say, 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, best case scenario, what does the Pixelverse look like in that time?
What does the Pixelverse look like, or what does the whole ecosystem in terms of Pixel Labs with Sappy
Yeah,
Seals attached as well?
tell me everything. What's the goal, right? So the end
Best
goal in
case,
like
yeah.
5, 10 years, yeah, best case.
We've got massive sort of aspiration in the space. So I guess it's a good question. The best case scenario is that we are a household name. We want to sort of, and again, we don't want to completely compare ourselves to these guys, but they're just so good and they've built such a great brand and business for themselves. But like, we want to be a behemoth in the space and as recognizable as Pokemon. So, we want our characters, our figures, our branding to sort of speak to the broader world. And, you know, people will just look at something and go, oh, that's a Sappy Seal, or oh, that's a Pixel Pet. And,
Yeah.
we're on that same sort of level. So we've got big aspirations to bring, a big trading card meta to this as well. Um, the Sappy Seals is sort of focused on building that sort of household lifestyle brand where, it's as recognizable as the Nike sign, or as recognizable as the Adidas logo, or, like I said, Pokemon. We take a lot of inspiration from big category killers who just dominate their space through, really fine-tuned execution and delivery. So I guess the best case scenario for us looking forward is having that sort of reach and being an organization that can, give back to the people who have helped make this a possibility, i.e. the community, and, everything that's involved with that as well. So I think, very broadly speaking, the best case time for us is that, this is as recognizable as any of those sorts of, well-known household brands. From a Pixelverse and Pixel Pets perspective, we want the game to be as enjoyable and as engrossing as those big, franchise blockbusters like Pokemon, like Ultima Online was back in the day. I'm giving away my age, all that sort of stuff. That really hardcore community that just loves what they're playing, logs in every day, can't get enough of it, and, really enjoys their
they
experience
they
within.
got like the backpack when they go to school, and then they got like the
Exactly.
plates and all that at
The
home.
seal eyes. We want those seal eyes to be iconic.
Oh,
If
yeah.
the ones on the Sappy Seals main account, those are, we want that to be as recognizable as the Nike logo.
Awesome. I really like that vision. And what I like about it is that the seals are so cute that they can definitely be used on like clothing, a pit like clothing, everyday household items. There's so much stuff you could use them on, and so many
Yeah.
partnerships that are possible, that it's honestly like I'm excited to see the future and actually what comes with it.
Yeah, completely agree. Like, think of it, like, for me, like, my brain just goes wild, and, there's people who are much more creative than myself. Like, I'm more of a numbers guy and logic guy, but, from that artistic direction and that creative, like, I can see them being in movies, in like TV, little TV shorts for children, animated books. Like you said, that the brandability of the thing for clothing and merchandise is huge. We've got some partnerships that are coming out shortly, and the concept design for what's going to look like on the label of this particular product is going to be, is
Ooh.
like so impressive. And it sort of feeds back into, I don't know if I just dropped a little bit of
Real
alpha, but
quick. All right,
we'll
yeah, we
have
just
something.
got a little leak actually, real quick. We got some alpha. So there will actually be a product with the Sappy Seals logo on it. Is that what you're saying? If you're allowed to
Yeah,
say.
I am allowed
Well,
to
it's too
say
late
that.
now, but
Like, oh, yeah, I know it is a little bit too late, but that's fine. I won't drop anything that I'm not supposed to. But yeah, it's a nice little teaser that there will be something that you'll be able to put in a physical space with you, with our logo on it. And it's really exciting because it's the first time that the new rebrand and push for that sort of pushing of our brand out into the IRL space is going to happen. So people will be able to get their hands on those at some stage in the next sort of month or two. And it's really exciting to have to actually see it come to life, so to speak. Um, and it's testament to the whole team with the rebrand that's going on. It's not a rebrand going on behind the scenes, but the reworking of our artwork. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of teasers that have been dropped by the broader team in the last sort of
Yeah,
six
I
to
have.
8 weeks.
Looks good.
I agree. Like I'm biased, obviously, but like the before and after, like I mean, the before is iconic and it will always be iconic to original, OG seal holders. But like the new artwork just brings us to that level that is, sort of required to be taken seriously when it comes to having conversations with these sorts
Yeah.
of people, right?
Yeah, it's like it's not something that you have to do, but if you really want to take Seals and Pixel Labs to the next level, then I'm not gonna say it's necessary, but it's a good option to do, and I think it's
100%.
smart. Now,
100%.
I want to talk a little bit about the Sappy Seals community. So currently, Sappy Seals are one of the top, if not the top, tightest community on Twitter, Discord, etc. Right? So being tied to them and being the Pixel Labs and everything, what's it like to kind of know that you're one of the most you're partnered or like part of one of the most hyped projects right now? Is there a lot of expectations from people in the space, or what does it feel like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like, I mean, it's super exciting, and you sort of don't take a lot of time to step back and appreciate exactly, how big we've become in the space. Like we're I like to think that everyone on the team, as it's currently constituted, is very humble, and like that filters from top to bottom, and it's sort of a cultural thing that we've set internally. But it's massive. We owe everything to our community, and the strength of that community on Twitter, like you say, with the ship posting, with the memeing, with this
Oh
the
yeah,
interaction is incredible, and we wouldn't be where we are today without our community. So I guess a massive shout out to everybody in the SEAL community, new and old. Like I mean, you are what give us the strength to do this on a day-to-day basis and continue to develop everything that we want to bring for you guys. Um, but yeah, taking a step back, it's amazing to be a part of, and it's incredible to see what the team have been able to cultivate. And, that's with Wab and Camel leading the charge from a sort of market facing perspective. Um, and, it comes from just being a little bit humble, but like they're willing to engage with our core community members on a daily basis. I don't see any other project founders that are
it's rare.
communicating, yeah,
Hey,
externally
let's get some
with
ARFs in the comments real quick too. If you're a Sappy Seal or you mess with the Sappy Seals, give us some ARFs in the comments down below.
yeah, arf,
But
arf, let's go.
yeah. But how closely do you work with Wob and Camel? Do you
Yeah,
talk to them like daily, or you just guys just talk on Twitter and you're more like kind of the just the tech in the background? How does that work?
Yeah, no, we've got a very well meshed and sort of I don't know what the right word for it is, but like a cohesive unit where we've got a Discord that we're a part of, and we're talking around the clock 24/7. So we're all on different time zones. I'm in Australia, obviously. Wab's in the UK, Camel's in the US, and team members fall mostly within that sort of geographic spectrum. So it covers the whole, you know, solar what's it called, lunar eclipse, or the solar
Yeah,
cycle, or
just
whatever it is, the one day of the sun around the earth or whatever. But yeah, we're in constant communication, and it's sort of just this continual um chat and dialogue. So we've got a massive Discord. We're on team calls. We make sure we have a scheduled team call once a week where everyone gets on a voice call and talks to each other, and we're making sure that progress is being made across all facets of um, the business or brand. And we literally are jumping in VC and talking. Like we have a concept of working groups whereby we've got a very flat hierarchy, but we have this concept of working groups where anybody can be a part of anything, but it's led by um, the subject matter experts or the team leads. So we have a tokenomics working group, we have a funding working group, we have a game design working group, engineering, systems design. We have all of these different working groups that will jump in VCs and talk about anything that needs to be talked about at any point in time. So you'll often see Effie and Daiku sitting in a game design VC just talking and testing and poking and prodding and pushing and pulling when it comes to game design. And then, DGen and I will be on one side, we're talking about tokenomics and how, the breeding is going to affect the emission schedule, and how does that tie into the game design concepts that Effie and Daiku are, wanting to bring to life through the game. And then we'll all jump in a call and bash heads together about everything that we've just been talking about. So it's very fluid, very, organic, and it's just around the clock communication between everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And even with the time zones, like it's probably pretty hard to coordinate that, but you got to do it. And I want to ask
Yeah.
you, is there any difference in working Web 2 job compared to a Web 3 job? Or to you, is it pretty similar at this point?
No, in my mind, it's completely different, and like I'm probably a good example of it because I went full time Web 2, which was more traditional finance, to full time Web 3, which is basically we're writing the rules for how work is done in this space right now. So there's some massive differences, i.e., like teams are massively decentralized and geographically dispersed. So it creates those challenges, like you just sort of identified, in that I'm on the Australian time zone, DJ's in the US time zone, and being able to cross, be up and talk at those times is challenging.
Yeah.
It's a lot of sort of 3 a.m., 4 a.m. mornings for myself. To communicate with these guys at a time that works for them, and if they want to communicate for me at a time that works for me, it's late nights for them. But we're on the everyone that ends up in this space gets on that degen time schedule,
That's
and
facts, honestly.
sleep sacrificed, huh?
That's facts.
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, that's probably the biggest difference. I think a huge one too is just that sort of flatness of hierarchy that exists within these Web3 organizations, if you want to call them organizations. So, traditional business world is very, very vertical, and you just have, your CEO and your boss, and he has his underlings, and then they have their underlings, and like there's not a great deal of leeway for people at the bottom of that pyramid to sort of express their ideas and make any meaningful change within an organization.
Yeah.
My experience in Web3 is that it's been much more horizontal. Doesn't matter who you are within the team or what working group you're in or doing, any idea is valid. Speak your truth, open your mouth, get the idea in front of everybody, and let's run with it. So like it's just a lot more horizontally distributed workload and idea generation. And it's amazing because some of the best ideas come from those people most intimate with the product. And I think the Web 2 traditional world could learn a lot from listening to people who are quote unquote lower on the totem pole, so to speak.
Yeah, they probably could learn a lot from that, but I really doubt they will, which is a big thing about Web3 is that, like you said, just a lot of the companies, to be fair, I would say a lot of the companies are a lot smaller. They're kind of more indie company or like mom and pop.
Yeah.
They're like the
Yep.
internet version of a mom and pop shop, is what I'll say.
Yep.
Just because a lot of the larger companies are a little scared to dive into NFTs and the model's a little different. Like there's the community they actually have to listen to for people to care about them. So it is a little different. But I think it's really interesting to kind of think of the differences between Pixel Labs if it was a Web3 company versus a Web2 company. Now,
Yeah, for sure.
the next thing I want to talk about is a little bit about tokenomics because with NFT games and with Web3 games, basically what we've seen, I would say 100% of the time, honestly, is when a project has a token, a gaming token, or 2 tokens or 3 tokens in the ecosystem, it's kind
Hmm.
of a race to zero. There
Yep.
might be a big FOMO period where it spikes up, but eventually it just kind of trickles down to nothing. So we've seen this with Axie Infinity, Peg Axie, Thetan Arena, just about every single video game.
Yep.
So will the Pixelverse be a play to earn game? And then how are you guys going to do your tokenomics to where you'll, try your best to prevent your token from going to
Going to
zero?
zero. Yeah, exactly. No, it's a huge something that's gone like massive thought from us as a team. And I completely agree. No one's really got it right in the broader space yet. But I think that's just a matter, like it's a function of poorly designed tokenomics and, people who probably were more incentivized by financial gain through their tokens as opposed to creating a robust currency or, token that will survive the test of time. So taking it back to first principles, the way that you design an economy or an ecosystem that has a currency that can survive the test of time is to make sure that that economy thrives and grows over time. So we're sort of designing our tokenomic system in conjunction with the actual, let's call it metaverse ecosystem, or like just the broader Pixelverse ecosystem. So we need to make sure that like the GDP of that country, so to speak, which is the Pixelverse, is growing over time and can sustain the value that underpins a token. So what that means for us is that you need a game that people want to play and that people want to participate in, because what we've seen with those other games that you just identified, like Axie, like the Arena, like these sorts of things, people treated it as the play to earn. Like they really emphasized the earn instead of play. So
People
people,
were playing to buy groceries and pay rent instead of playing a video game to have fun and upgrade and progress and decorate and stuff.
yeah,
So
for
it
sure.
was really like kind of all the wrong reasons. We thought it was going to be the future of work, but it turns out it was quite the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's not the fault of these projects who, have been through these massive pumps and the unfortunate, drops of their tokens afterwards. It's something that you need to design against, because if you have, hundreds of thousands of people, like in the case of Axie, running to your ecosystem all at once, and you only have a limited supply of your currency or your utility token, there's only one way for it to go, and that's up in a straight line. Um, and I don't think Axie could have predicted the amount of success they had, because it was a combination of, factors out of a lot of people control, like the pandemic forcing everybody to be work from home,
Yeah,
forcing
that's
everyone,
crazy.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
pushed
They even
everyone
said
into,
like this was their, I think it was a minimum viable product. They're like, we did not expect to have 2 million people playing this game. Maybe in the future, but not this game. So they admitted they weren't ready, but that's not to like undermine their success or anything. They
no,
did a great job with the game. It's just it didn't, the economy didn't last.
100%. And, I've got criticism of like their particular dual token infrastructure and how they set that up within their economy. But, as the first people to breach the space and develop a game and tie in tokenomics with NFTs and, Web3 gaming, like, I mean, you can't fault them for trying, and it was insanely successful for a period of time. It's just the problem is people get left holding the bag, and that is a terrible, terrible experience for someone to have to go through if you're that little bit late to the party and you're the one that is, essentially being dumped on by people who've been in the ecosystem for longer than you are, or that you have, and maybe a little bit more smarter or savvy around the tokenomics of these things. So where our core philosophy is accessibility and stability when it comes to that, when it comes to our tokenomics. Ultimately, we don't want to have violent upswings or downswings in, our currency. However, we don't want to play God either, and
Yeah, that's
manipulate
a
the
big
price.
thing, especially with the whole ethos of crypto and decentralization. You could potentially balance a token by pulling some levers, but it's like if you keep having to pull the levers, you're gonna make 50% of the people mad when you pull this lever. Next time you
Yeah,
pull the next one, 50% of the people are gonna get mad, and then you keep doing that, and it's like, at what point do you let the market be free? And you have your free market. So that's an interesting
yeah.
point you said. Is like you don't want to get too involved.
Yeah, exactly. And so just taking it back to the original question is to, how we're designing the tokenomics to sort of sustain and not just drop and go to zero at the back end. It all comes down to the strength of your economy, which is driven by, your player base and their experience, and actually giving them in game tangible value that they can sort of contribute to and create the circular flow and movement of goods through the economy. So in the traditional model, you have a lot of just value extractors who are there to earn and are just, grinding to take, let's call it SLP. Let's earn as much SLP as we possibly can in a 24-hour period, pull it out, cash it to fiat, and I'm buying my groceries, like you said before.
Yeah.
So if you've got an economy that only has value extractors, then of course it's going to dump it. It'd be the same in the real world with a real world economy as well. So you need to create a system or an economy that is sustainable in and of itself, that sort of grows over time, but it also encourages people to contribute and add value to the economy to continue to make it grow. So this is where all of these multiple prongs are going to come in. Like we were saying before, it's not just going to be a game for people to play. We're going to make it an
Mm.
all-encompassing experience that people enjoy being in. We've got subsystems designed that allow an efficient transfer of goods within the economy between players and encourage them to build within the metaverse and the game ecosystem that makes it better as a sum of the parts. Like, as people build, we're going to encourage them to be able to build things that add value to the ecosystem, that draw in more players or make the existing players' experience within the ecosystem better. So by definition, the economy is growing and it's more self-sustaining in that regard.
Got it. Awesome, awesome. And I'm very much looking forward to see, how that goes. I'm sure it's going to be very difficult, but I kind of think you guys have a master plan behind the hood down there. So very excited to see how that goes. Now I want to talk about Web3 marketing for video games specifically, so NFT games. What we've seen is a lot of kind of hyped, we'll say Web3 games. They launch their product and people play it for about a week, and it's all their holders and all that. And then basically after a week, no one plays the game, right? So they have this cool game. It's just no one's
Yeah.
playing it. No one's buying anything. You probably can't even find a game because there's no users even on the servers. So what's your strategy to actually combat that and to show your game to people outside of Web3?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, I mean, what I think the problem has been, and this is just my personal view, and there's going to be a million different takes, but I don't think there's been games that people actually want to play a lot, really. Like, I mean, the flash in the pan successes that we've seen that have done really well, like the Axies, the Z runs, they've created a game that people actually want to play and use. They've just fallen over different hurdles in terms of, rounding out the whole product. Like Axie had what could be argued was poorly designed tokenomics that sort of created a hugely negative experience from a financial perspective for late participants because they bought Axies that were overly inflated in value and they crashed when that new supply hit the market. Similarly, we saw the same thing with Zrun. Like, I mean, Zrun was huge to me in that it's so marketable. The global horse racing industry is a huge industry. If you can put that
Yeah.
in the fingers of people electronically, digitally, at the touch of a button around the clock, I mean, that has huge potential to me.
And they look dope
But
too. Not to mention the art style and the track and everything too.
100%, yeah, I loved it. It was just sort of just roped me in and engrossed me, and I still have nothing but massive respect for those. They're an Aussie team as well who developed that. So shout
Nice.
out to the homeland. But they just ran into challenges that, again, being one of the first to the space, that they couldn't have foreseen. Like, I mean, you could have foreseen it. Their breeding model was the downfall of their early economy and what caused a lot of people problems. Unlimited breeding is unlimited supply of horses. So if you have millions and millions of horses in your ecosystem with no burn mechanism, or what you could put in a horse racing game is like a lifespan of these things that sort of acts as a deflationary mechanism over time because horses are being retired off the track and you need that new influx of breeding. They sort of just bombed their supply side, which they've put caps in, and they're responding to the challenges. But this has sort of gone a little bit off take, but like as it sort of relates to creating a game, what we're doing and what we're hoping is slightly going to put us in better stead over time is, as opposed to just creating a game for creating a game's sake and hoping that people play, we're creating a game that we know that people will engage with and will want to play. And Effie and Daiku, I've said this a couple of times, these guys are incredible, and the philosophy for them is that it's not play and earn. It's not play and earn, play to own, play whatever. It's play at its core. It has to be play to have fun. People want to
Yeah.
continually play this game. It's like the classics, Diablo 3 or The Sims, or Sim City way back in the day.
People spent like $1 billion on Fortnite, or ridiculous numbers, right? And that
Yep,
game's free to play, and no one's making you buy NFTs or any of that BS. So people
100%.
will definitely pay for cosmetics. they'll pay for progress, and they'll pay for power-ups as well as a lot of other things too. So video game industry is bigger than the movie industry and the television industry combined, or
Yeah,
the music industry too. So there's a lot of money in video games, especially the fun
100%.
ones.
Yeah, but that's the key word. It has to be fun, right? Like people have to want to play your game. If you just create a game for the sake of creating a game and it's the same as everything else that's, out there in the traditional gaming space already, just because it's Web3 doesn't mean people are going to come and use it, right? Like it just creates that, like you said, community members come and use it for a week. Wasn't as fun or engaging as they anticipated it to be. They were probably there hoping that the idea of a game pumped their bags and they could just dump into the the new liquidity that came in because of game, and then that was it, and they sort of die it's not even a slow death, like just a very, very quick death, if you could argue that it was alive in the first place. So our core principle is to build a game that people are going to want to play over and over and over again, make it compelling, fun, interactive to do so. Tied in with that, like I think the esports angle that our particular game has going for it, it's going to come out of the box esports ready. Like I can envision massive tournaments, and I know Effie's got some massive scheme to bring in automated tournament systems,
Nice.
and
That's cool.
yeah, it's going to be I can't say it enough. These guys are amazing. Like I'm so blessed and lucky to be working with these guys, and
Can I
how
ask
that
you
team
something?
together.
Let me ask you something about that. Because so a lot of people, the thing I like about this interview right now is that this is going to reach gamers and it's also going to reach the PFP crowd. So
Yep.
one thing that the PFP crowd or maybe even the DeFi crowd doesn't know is that games have guilds. And when I say a guild, I mean like a team of people, right? So, for example, Sappy Seals is like a guild, kind of. It's like a guild in a video game, but it's more real life.
Hmm.
So, would you ever think of having guilds for different NFT projects or like just guilds in your game so people can actually play together and work towards something together and experience things as a group?
Yeah, 100%. Like that is definitely on our, I don't want to call it a roadmap, but like that's one of our core pillars that will drive this entire Pixelverse ecosystem. It's not just going to be a solo enterprise that you sort of carrying out alone and just 1v1ing your whole way through the experience. Guild's going to play a massive part in not just the pet battler up front, but like the broader like sort of expansion that we take to getting it to that sort of metaverse ready open world project. So there's I don't want to say too much just because I don't want to put expectation out there that doesn't get delivered into in the next sort of couple of months and people are just, what's going on? You said this, but there's some serious internal systems design going on that will use guild based mechanisms. And it was like you said before, some people are going to enjoy the pet battler style game. Other people are going to enjoy like a game like Risk or Diablo, or some people might want to play a game like Fortnite. Now, I'm not saying we're going in any one of these particular directions, but we're making sure that our entire game ecosystem appeals to as many different sort of game archetypes as possible. So
Nice.
the next step for bringing guilds to life within the ecosystem, and it will apply to the initial 4v4 pet battler, but it will also play a massive role taking us from just a turn-based pet battler to this whole open world experience and how we step there along the way. So might be a little bit vague and not a perfect answer, but just understand that we are definitely bringing the guilds will definitely be a part of this, and it will play a big part because we want to drive that community element of things where people are interacting, having a good time with other people, and competing with and against each other, because that sort of game theory and social dynamic really drives some cool outcomes as well.
Okay, awesome, awesome. And then, so TZ, how long till I get to play the Pixelverse Alpha?
That is a great question. Where I don't have a hard deadline myself. Like that's sort of not my realm of expertise. That's a Daiku question. But I will say that we've put some deadlines out there in the past, and the what's making this difficult to answer is for you to be able to play the alpha versus us to be able to play the alpha. So,
Yeah.
we've got 1 quarter left in this year. Um, I'll drop that we're sort of doing some serious move balancing at the moment. We've got our hands on some stuff that's looking really cool, but in the hands of the broader community, it's probably looking at the very end of the year at the earliest, and more likely the first quarter of next year.
Okay, so we'll say we'll do the Web3 route. We'll say Q1 to Q2 of next year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do that. Okay, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it. If you got any early access, you know who to hit up. Just
We'll hit
saying.
a boy up for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
So you mentioned you're a fan of Zed Run, and you know a little bit about Axie. Obviously, you're a fan of Sappy Seals. Is there any other games or PFP projects or anything else that you enjoy in Web3?
It's a good question. Like I love a lot of different projects. I think I've suffered as much in. I don't believe we've seen anything that's sort of groundbreaking or amazing just yet. I've got my eye on, and I really enjoy the sort of thought process that's gone into the game design of a game called Citadel Game.
Hmm.
Very tiny free mint that happened, a couple of months ago. It's holding a very nice floor at 0.5 ETH. They're currently in their um,
That's
like
pretty good for a free mint. It's at 0.5.
yeah, it was very limited supply. They did 1,024 Genesis Citadels that are your sort of, it's called drachma, but it's what produces the currency that powers their game over time. So they've just launched their like pre-mining phase as they bring the game into development. So they're participating in, you're sort of staking your citadels to unlock a tech tree, which will help your faction once it comes time to playing the game. So they're doing some really cool things, and I'm excited for everything that Max and the team over there are putting together.
Awesome.
That's from a gaming perspective, but it's only going to appeal to a small amount of gamers because it's sort of like Civ on steroids, is how they're trying to position themselves, which is a really cool. Like I love those sort of 4X style games. Um, from a PFP sort of stuff, like I mean, there's so many projects and there's so many different positives and negatives associated with everyone, but I'm just so ingrained with the Sappy Seals at this point in time and spend,
Yep. Same.
basically all my days engrossed in working for the team and engaging with people on Twitter that I don't really have time to sort of rep a different community. But, you know,
If your PFP wasn't a Sappy Seal, what would it be?
oh, that's a good one.
Hurry up. You got five
Um,
seconds.
yeah, it would have
Four.
been a doodle prior, I
Okay.
reckon.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you think about Doodles their Twitter drama where they haven't
Uh,
made a tweet in like over a month or two or something? You care about that or
yeah,
not
look,
really?
no, I'm well across that, and I was skeptical, but like I was like, holy shit, this can't be. They can't be a rug as well,
Yeah,
or a
no
soft
way.
rug. No way. Like they've raised so much money. Poopy and the team, by all accounts, incredible operators. And then they did those. The thing that got me was they did that box drop of wearables and
Yeah, yeah.
upgraded PFP art or whatever it was, and that cleared at 0.5 ETH or whatever for 20,000 of the things, and just raised all that money out of the ecosystem. And then you don't hear from them again for 2 months. It's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck has just gone
That
on?
was crazy.
But then it all made sense when it came out. They raised 50 million bucks at the $750 million valuation. I'm sure there was some very strict and enforceable, binding, NDAs, non-disclosure agreements that were in place there. They probably didn't wanted to make sure that they didn't put anything out in the public domain that they shouldn't have been putting out on the main account, because the project founders were quite active on their personal accounts, but the project account had gone quiet. So it all makes sense to me in my mind, given that they've just announced that Series A equity raise. And I'm hoping that they're going to be a little bit more active now that they've got the war chest to put to work with a massive team,
Oh yeah,
and hopefully
massive.
the social side of that comes along with it. But I mean, that to me is a project that's hugely brandable. They've done amazing things with their sort of art direction and how they've built or positioned themselves within the space. I just always think it's going to be very difficult for NFT projects at this stage of the cycle to deliver into a $1 billion valuation. Like that's just insane. Like I was talking to a couple of people the other day, and like I think there's only something like 250 stocks on the entire Australian stock exchange that have a market cap bigger than $500 million. And you're telling
Damn.
me that
And now
this NFT
Doodles,
project's bigger than all of those?
Doodles that has not pretty much not done anything. I mean, they've done like some IRL events. They did 2 airdrops, I think.
Yeah.
Have they done more than that? I'm not sure.
I'm sure they've delivered a bit of merch, and I think they had
Merch.
some 3D models that they sent to holders at some stage as well. That might have been the airdrop they're referring to. But yeah, I agree. Like the valuations that we're seeing in the space for, you know, 5-year deliverable promises is huge. I mean, that's a function of
I feel
being a
like
little bit of a
I
bubbly and frothy market.
yeah, I feel like Doodles still has massive potential though because their
Mm,
art style is so unique and so defined that's like I'll know where it is from anywhere. No matter
yep.
what I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, that's Doodles. I really think
Yeah.
if there's somehow like ship out some cool products or do something or provide some type of utility to the holders, I think that could be justified because Web3 is just getting started. And if they're, one of the, if not like the biggest brand, they're definitely up there in the future when the space is getting even larger, then I can actually warrant that
Yeah.
valuation. But it's like a future
Yeah.
play, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's the bull case for these guys, right? Like you're going to grow into that valuation by virtue of being one of the biggest players in an industry that's going to boom over the next half a
Yep.
decade, and you're going to take X% market share, and you're going to be good. But then cynics and critics of the space will be, that's crazy. $1 billion for a team that only got brought to life 9 months ago, hasn't given the space or developed or built anything, doesn't have a history of doing so. Why are you sort of making that bet? So it's yin and yang. Just depends what side of the argument you want to fall on, right?
Yeah, definitely. Much better than Azuki. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Now, I want to talk about collabs for the Pixelverse. So I remember back in the super hype Twitter spaces, you guys had like, I think 10 different partnerships. So it was like BearX, Nifty League, so
Yep.
many different ones. So what are you guys planning to do with them? And then can we expect any more partnerships in the near future?
Yeah, so I mean, nothing's changed on that front. I mean, I'm just looking at the partnership list, and it's in excess of what looks to be 30 different projects. But I think we've sort of been held hostage to the pace of development of the Pixelverse ecosystem. These are going to be partners that are integrated on some level. We have a tiered based sort of integration depending on strength of community and how much they're going to co-contribute to the development of the actual Pixelverse and stuff like that. So they're all still bubbling away in the background. Nothing's changed there. Once we get this sort of Pixelverse ecosystem up and running, integrations will happen on a project by project basis. Like it's sort of bespoke for each individual project and what they want to achieve within the ecosystem that we're building. So yeah, that's definitely still going well. So sorry, I've just forgotten what the second part of the question was for you.
Is there any future collabs that we can expect in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I
Future?
can't give you anything tangible in terms of a name drop or anything like
Yeah.
that, but just know that where our doors are always open, we really want to sort of push that ethos of interconnectedness between NFT projects. It's not a 1v1 sort of environment where, it's us versus them. It's the space is going to be better together. So we want to encourage anybody that thinks that they can thrive within our sort of ecosystem and work synergistically together to reach out and help bring this to life in a way that helps like the whole space as opposed to just the Sappy seals or just us as individuals. So yeah, plenty going on in that front, but nothing that I'll explicitly drop right now.
Nice. Awesome. All right. And then we're getting to the back part of the interview here, maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Do you have any advice for someone who is looking to be a founder, looking to be a co founder, or maybe join a prestigious team such as Pixel Labs or the Doodles team, or maybe even start their
Yeah.
own project, right? Do you have any advice for them to get started, or maybe something that you would have liked to know before you got started?
there's so so many things you want to know before you get started, right? But like I think the biggest thing from like my piece of advice that I'd give people who are in that situation, who either want to join a project team or start their own thing, is sort of just roll up the sleeves and get stuck into doing it. I mean, if you want to go the route of joining a prestigious team, the space is so, we're still in such its infancy that there's so much to explore, and like there's roles that are being created that are so untraditional when you sort of take
It's
the
like
traditional business
full-time
world out there.
memers. I'm not even kidding.
That
People are getting
I
paid to
know.
make memes.
Yeah,
Great.
that's
If you
what
guys
I
are
was going
hiring,
to
hit me
say.
up, by the way.
100%. We've got our chief meme lord Wook on the team. He does an amazing job. But like you can't get enough of these things. It drives that sort of social engagement and that like feeling of community, which is, it's an amazingly important role. But what I would say is that everybody has a skill that they will be able to contribute that will work with the team. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to meme and shit post and get a job on any project, because that's not going to suit every project, right? But what I would say about the space is that it allows you and affords you the flexibility to express yourself and your individual talents. You probably underestimate how good you are at whatever it is that you are good at doing. So I would just say you need to get out there, be active, talk to people, build that network, put yourself out in front of teams. My story of joining the Sappy Seals was the fact I was lucky enough to mint the one of one Drizzy in the mint September last year. But because I
Yeah.
minted that, I was just active and talking and a part of the community. And Wab was so approachable. We sort of just had a dialogue one-on-one, and you just sort of bring a unique skill set that a team needs and be right place, right time, and you can make a name for yourself and become part of a team like this. And for those who are starting their own projects, I mean, the advice I would give is just make sure you understand what you're getting into. It's a hell of a lot of work. It's 24/7, but it's very rewarding when you see your ideas come to life. So I'd just say you need to roll up your sleeves. This space is so important. There's so many resources out there to learn from, like YouTube videos and Udemy courses on coding and programming if that's your jam. If you're better at marketing, just go and study the guys who have grown their accounts from nothing to 50K plus followers over the last 6 months. Figure out what they're doing, and just I just say get stuck in, because there's very little upfront development costs to launch a project, and you can be amazingly successful if you have a unique and fresh take. Sort of like what Voltura did with Psychedelics Anonymous coming out of the blue at the end of
Yeah.
last year.
Great project.
Yeah,
I know they
100%.
had their companion drop. I think it was Ezu. I know it
Yep.
didn't go as planned, but a great project, great art, and I like their vision too. Shout out to
Yeah.
them.
And another Aussie. How good's that?
Oh, another one, bro. You guys are all over the place, huh?
Taking over Web3.
Yes,
Taking over
sir.
Web3. Yeah, so I mean, it's just tough. You've got to roll your sleeves up and get stuck in, and just know that there is something you can contribute no matter what your skill set is.
There you go. And guys, a lot of the part is just starting and taking that chance, not only for the project, but for yourself too. Like a lot of the things is just sending that DM or reaching out to that person. So I encourage everyone watching this to make sure to do that. I mean, that's how TZ got his job, right? He just hit up Wob, and now he's working for one of the most hype projects in all of Web3, which is insane. So we are going to close things out right here. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little call to action? Tell us where we could follow you. Make sure you tell us to buy some seals. And yeah.
I was going to steal Camel's call to action and just sign off with buy a seal coward.
All right. Buy a seal, cowards.
There you go. And yeah, like I'm NFTZ boy. So you'll see me around. If you want to follow me on Twitter, go for it. But I'm not here to sort of engagement farm or anything like that. Just want to say thanks for hosting this, and it was really good to be able to speak to the project.
Yeah, of course. And I really want to do this again in 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 months. When you guys launch your game, I want to ask you so much about the game, but I know there's a lot you can't tell me. So yeah, it was great to have you, TZ. And remember, guys, if you see this seal with the fade, then give him a follow. So once again, this is Farmer Nash. Remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment who you'd like me to interview next. We do games, projects, founders, everyone. And we are signing off. Remember to like, subscribe, like, subscribe, like, subscribe.